Crossing the Crypto Chasm. Good evening, lords and ladies. Herr Dr. von Verloc here. Alright, so I have a question for everyone this evening. What do you all think about digital assets? You know, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, blockchain networks. Well, I imagine only a handful of people will know exactly what each one of these terms means. But I assure you, every single day, the number of people getting into cryptocurrency is growing. Despite governments all around the world tirelessly and shamelessly seeking to destroy it or centralize it under their banner, their agenda of power and mass control. And it always does boil down to a game of domination with these old wigs who still think that their dinosaur colleagues in authoritarian and dystopian mindsets matter to the majority of the world. And with this majority, however, there exists a gap, a chasm, if you will, which divides us and keeps us from, at length, accomplishing true and ultimate freedom. And that true freedom is what Herr Dr. von Verloc has set out to accomplish over the years. So, what are we up against and where are we headed? You may very well ask. You know, I was thinking about the times that we live in. Yes, the times we live in and the times that we are currently living behind. It was thought by Mr. Kai-Fu Lee, the author of AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order, that artificial intelligence is the next Big Daddy, the greatest invention, game changer. It's the globalists love that, game changer, for the world, much like electricity has been for the better part of our lives. I think beginning with the first modern application in 1660. And anyway, Mr. Lee went on to write about how such inventions of this kind, AI, like electricity, the internet, now AI, artificial intelligence, right, only happen once every, 70 or so years, maybe once in a century. And in Kai-Fu Lee's book, AI Superpowers, the author places heavy emphasis on data being the gold mine of our lifetime, with China being the biggest holder, the juggernaut, the data juggernaut of the world, collector of world data. However, and having considered the position of this brilliant mind and this author's arguments, we can also draw a parallel to what is called Web3, and more specifically, that area of Web3, I think it's more appropriately referred to as the spatial web, but I digress. That area of Web3 we call blockchain technology, alright? Are you paying attention, kiddies? Lean closer. Listen. Now, while the rest of the world thinks what it thinks, and I'll talk about that in a moment, we psionics need to keep firmly in mind that the blockchain is not an invention, but rather more of an innovation. And there are many innovations to come. I mean, it almost seems like Elon Musk has a new innovation of the rocket every month on Twitter. Right. And joking aside, the real deal behind all things will be the power of data. And that data is in the crosshairs of artificial intelligence organizations all around the world, I assure you. While we're big on machine learning in the West, the United Kingdom is looking in other directions entirely in regard to this AI technology. China, however, has a keener eye on the real meat of the applications of the world today. And while that shouldn't be so surprising, and that vision holds every single person's data firmly in mind. And not just people, everything. Right down to the number of grains of rice in that rice bowl you are enjoying at Panda Express, Yoshinoya, and the number of rolls of toilet paper accessible to the general public. Sorry, I had to throw that one in. Alrighty, so what are people, particularly businesses and entrepreneurs, thinking about all this blockchain stuff, right? How about and I quote, new generational opportunity, end quote, as stated by Romania's Ben Minsu, the CEO of Elrond, or also known as eGold, Elrond Gold, blockchains. Economy at the speed of the internet, accessible to anyone on the planet if governments do not ban the crypto, do not shut down access to these blockchains, seal their countries off, leash their people, impoverish the world. Open and transparent technology is the future if the governments of the world will get out of our way. I'll throw the link to Elrond in notes here on Planet Verloc, or you may type into your browser Elrond.com. That is ELROND.com. Hey, you know, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, Brother Ben. And Mr. Minzu has got the right spirit here. Yet, we also must keep an eye on the world as a whole as we move into these new arenas. Although, I don't know, arena is really kind of an older way of thinking, but I think we should still have our wits about us, though. That means that training up in psionics and learning all that I've learned in this mental martial art form is what you need. Because you can say whatever you want. You can tell the truth as much as you want. But truth gets buried by power. And you must have power. Psionics is power that cannot be taken away from you. How many times do I need to remind you? By the way, and for the record, I also purchased Elrond, and I added this to my cryptofolio. And I love Mr. Minsu's vision, and I'm good for putting money down if it helps to expand the project. And I'm I'm telling you about it here, so you'll go and check out his interview, by the way, with Brian Rose on London Real. You know, I almost never miss a show. No, it's one of the few YouTube shows that I like to check it out every now and then. You know, at least once a week I will tune in to hear what Brian has to say. And you should too. Okay, so I'll throw in a link to that interview of Mr. Minsu, again, the CEO of Elron, and that is on London Real, hosted by Brian Rose. That link will be in my podcast description on podbean.com. Alright, a quick note here for my psionic students. And for those of you particularly who have purchased Psionic Cryptomancer from Vrilog.com/shop, note that Elron or eGold not only scales at 100,000 transactions per second, but I think it was 100,000. Was it 100,000? Well, actually, what I'm about to tell you makes it irrelevant because that scalability is virtually unlimited with each shard added to the network. So essentially, they're already exceeding that 100,000 transactions per second capacity. And there is no end in sight. Isn't that beautiful? It is. It's almost poetic. No, really. Likewise, the vision held by Elron is not to dismantle Ethereum or to steal from Bitcoin, but rather to create a space, one in which welcomes 1 billion people to participate in Elron's blockchain vision. Elron seeks to resolve the problem of limits, such as gas fees on crypto transaction. You know, the cost of fees for some blockchains can cost more than what it is worth for the transaction itself, which means that we cannot create a global economy based on some of the cryptocurrency blockchains today. Isn't that what we've been trying to do? With, you know, my older podcast, we talked about, like, the psionic billionaire, psionic millionaire, and so on and so forth, where you may not have to be in possession of $1 billion. You merely have to be able to influence $1 billion. Influence $1 billion, or one who holds $1 billion, or a company that controls $1 billion, and that influence is purely coincidental. It's magic. Of course, we are talking about magic here. But in my experience, magic works quite well. Alright, so we can't really create a global economy based on the cryptocurrency or the blockchains of today. Not quite yet. But we are seeing a change. And this change may be Elron, it could be Solana, it could be Avalanche maybe. You name it. And being that we here are psionicists, we are all of us magicians, turning into this podcast loyally. Yes, tuning in loyally, faithfully, every month of the year. We want to have a say in how this world economy plays out. How do you think it will pan out? Hopefully we will manifest a high bandwidth economy. So, if you're working psionics with the Psionic Cryptomancer video course, again, from my shop at Vrilog.com/shop, you should keep these points in mind alongside your dowsing and remote influence work. Keep in mind that your remote influence work will be on two levels, on the front end and the back end work of global tech. which means both the fintech front end and DeFi for the back end work. However, if you've mastered Cyanic Cryptomancer video course, then you will have what you need to influence the world without having to understand every subtlety, every painful subtlety of computer science. In fact, El Doctor won't ask you to learn any kind of rocket science at all. Just an overview of blockchain and how psionics works in these systems, both in real time and potentially in the future. Go to verloc.com/shop if you haven't watched the video course already. So, let's move on to some of the other world highlights here for global psionics masterminds joining us tonight. Let's see. What do we have here? News highlight. Russia Central Bank proposed crypto ban. Are you surprised? Well, don't be. Every CBDC... Well, here's the thing. They want to ban crypto. Every central bank wants to ban crypto, but at the same time, or at least they did, I don't know, a month ago, they were all talking about it. Central banks wanted to create CBDCs, which would be central bank digital currencies. And then a number of them, I think they said, no, never mind, forget it. Let's just ban the damn crypto. Yeah. It's sort of like when someone's decided to make marijuana legal in some states, right? What it did is it removed the element of crime to some degree. So there's no money in it if it's legal. So I kind of pick up the sense here that nobody really wants to get rid of cryptocurrency, but rather they would seek to make it illegal. That means for the money changers, if you know who they are, you heard of them, the money changers around the world, and those are the ones that people keep calling banksters, although banks are your friend, at least insofar as being a buffer between ourselves and the government. Banks help entrepreneurs, we get loans and so on. But what if the future holds for us where cryptocurrency becomes illegal, and then the money changers want to use that as their trafficking? Business as usual, right? Except that they don't have to drive around in big trucks moving the gold around, and machine guns and missiles and toxic poison gas and nukes and all that sort of thing. You just do it with a computer. High-tech companies will plummet. IT pros will flee the nation. We're talking about Russia here. Do you believe that crypto is central to developing countries? Manapushka? Telegram CEO and founder Pavel Durov has said, banning crypto will put the brakes on developing technologies that are vital for economy. Telegram CEO assesses impact of Russia's proposal to ban crypto, warns of major risk for high-tech economy. Yeah. Well, at least he said it. It wasn't, it wasn't Charles Schwab saying this, right? So we can trust at least 50% of what we're hearing right now. If that much. But it's better than 1%. Solutions out there. In regard to crypto economics, firstly. Well, Mr. Brian Rose of London Real, as I've stated, recently filmed an interview, in which he and Mr. Mintzu, the CEO of Elrond, seemed to agree that it almost sounds like a strategy here. If 1 billion people bought crypto, maybe Elrond, right? And then we'd have our own, sort of like our own financial system, really. What else would matter? It's the numbers, right? 1 billion people buying crypto. Something rather like that. And, the thing about it is right now we have a smaller number of people buying crypto. We could be a lot bigger. I think we have some millions of people buying crypto, but we need billion. We need 1 billion people. That would be, as the Secretary of the EU and all his other colleagues and Schwab and all didn't like to say, that would be the real game changer. We also have to keep in mind that the new technology also presents new challenges, as Elrond CEO points out, and rightly so. I mean, we just saw, like, what was it the other day? Crypto.com, the company that branded the Crow coin, was hacked, and they had a problem with hackers, and they had built their platform starting out from the get-go on security. Yeah. So, I mean, there are always going to be new challenges. Thus, we can retrospect back to the wisdom of Kai-Fu Lee, again, the author of AI Superpowers that I mentioned in the opening of this podcast. That what we call data is vulnerable to global tyrants, susceptible to cyber criminals, hackers, terrorists. But, as I like to remind people, fear of the unknown, being squeamish about the unfamiliar, cringing from new experiences, is something we want to change right now, because the only way we're getting off this rat shit ship and get the hell out of Dodge. No, I'm not talking about selling your Dodge coins. And don't tell people I said that. The globalist dungeon, the doldrums of the century. Okay, perhaps I'm dramatizing a bit too much. I think the Tower of London was much worse than how we have things right now. The only way out is to embrace the new potential that is here and now. And we call this potential the Web3, the blockchain networks, and cryptocurrency. Well, I mean, it's all very real. It's just, there's a lot of things that need to be adjusted, fixed, innovated. So, you have a brilliant mind, get out there and do something, put your heads together, form a team. Who knows? You may just be the next CEO of a multi-million-dollar, or perhaps one day $1 billion crypto organization, right? As psionicists, however, which most of us are, with a vested interest in the overall survival of our global asses. No, I didn't say assets. No, you heard me right. I said our asses. And our online communities, we will begin working remote influence to help shape the world towards, Chuck's going to hate me for saying this, toward a positive path. To get people excited about the new era of hyper-advanced economic systems that is open, and accessible to anyone and everyone. And I'm not joking, I'm being serious. You know, and we can do this. Governments may not in the short term cease their fruitless efforts to disrupt or ban crypto technology, but eventually, I dare say inevitably, they will fail. Firstly, and as I've said, not a dozen times, but once, which should have been sufficient, we Verlokians, that is, friends of Herr Dr. von Verloc, must project the overwhelming feeling of joy, the big old Wunyo rune, joyfulness, harmonious joy, around the planet associated with the cryptocurrency, DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, NFTs, and blockchain networks. We want people excited, interested, no more than interested, intrigued. That's the first stage, and we've barely made par, but in some ways we have done all right. We've succeeded in some ways, but let's try to keep at it, shall we? What you need is the Psionic Cryptomancer video course, and that's just to get you trained up and up to speed on the specific techniques, very specific techniques for long-term gains in mind, money, magic, remote system control via the mind, etc., et. But if you're brand spanking new to psionics, you will take the Psionics Academy 101. Why? What do you mean, why? Alright, so, as I've experimented with telepathy and telemechanics over the decades, now about 35 years, 40 years into the meditation and all that, I did at long last make a purchase of some BCI licenses just recently and EEG equipment. I had to wait about a little over 3 months to receive my equipment, and now I can already do a lot, right, without this equipment. Just read my book, The Wondrous Wheel VPG3, and you'll learn how to remotely sense people and systems just by sitting in front of your computer monitor, utilizing my power-ups for the third eye and crown chakra. Everybody has a third eye and a crown chakra, okay? You don't have to go out and buy one. I just need to download the ebook and learn from my academies. But now with my BCI, I'm sorry, that is the brain-to-computer interface headgear, and the licenses for the EEG, I am able to tap into psionics without the old clunky radionics boxes. No need for it. I still use my prayer board, and I do use my laser wand, but the radionics itself is like, it's become like a thing of medieval times to me, now that I have full access to both EEG, QEEG, charts, brain scanners, and brain-to-computer interface, which, by the way, all of this spans across the World Wide Web because of the internet connection, and into the virtual and augmented realms as well. Eventually, I'll be putting my findings in, hopefully, in my EEG and BCI research into some constructs on the metaverse. You know, if you go to metaverse and search at Verloc, you can find the legendary wall of Dr. von Verloc, and I have all these augmented reality servitors that you can use with your phone and point this at something you want. And one guy just contacted me recently and got a nice whopping $100 check from his mentor, who then refused to take the check back. You know, it's right after using my money servitor. So, All right. So aside from an occasional balancing rate on my old radionic box, I don't really need radionics for every single operation in psionics. In fact, to be honest, the majority of most of my successes have been through my personal developments in psionics, not the standard radionics. Tuning radionic boxes is, I hate to say it, old boy, but it's outdated. It's become a circus show on YouTube, and every other shameless vagabond and snake oil salesman out there on YouTube is trying to sell it. The future is in my lab, and the most powerful lab is my mind itself. Your mind is equally capable of taking this leap with me into the future. But I will say that there is still some good use for the standard old analog radio and the sending rune combination for influencing distant and future events, literally altering future events. I tried this with lotteries. I think the first time I used this particular combination was in Japan, and I'd always get that first and last number exactly right, somewhere in the middle, and it does work. It can influence future events quite well, among other things. I would never spend all day every day working on lotteries, but it's good fun. And that's something, that particular arrangement is something I teach in my club. Okay, so in any event, the entire future is digital, and that future is actually present, here and now. Not in the too distant future. It's right here, right now. It's just getting better, next week, right? Things are always getting better next week at Verloc.com, where you really keep the magic high. My psionic shop will satisfy your insatiable desires for learning these beginning courses for the future of mind magic, sorcery, machine dowsing technology, while we wait for blockchains to simplify and improve their user experience for the world. We can still work on becoming powerful remote influencers without having to know the rocket science of blockchain technology. And I think that makes us all feel a whole lot better. I mean, much more powerful, much more peace of mind, realizing we do indeed have this power of psionics to back us up in these trying times of global tyranny and world domination. This concludes our merry little gathering in the hallowed hours of the evening. I do thank you for joining our Dr. Von Verloc this evening. And until next time, we all meet up in cyberspace. I want to remind you all to keep the magic high. This is Herr Dr. Von Verloc, signing out.